Good morning, gardeners and homesteaders. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day because spring is on the way, and I can tell you it's on the way because we're going to be planting our potatoes a little bit early. Shh, don't tell anybody. So we're going to be doing that. I'm going to show you my process of how I get them ready, how I get them in the ground, and then I'm going to be combining two methods this year. And after that, basically, you can watch that part if you want to learn how to plant potatoes or whatever you want, and then you can leave or you can stay. And I'm going to kind of get into a little bit about the methods of gardening that I use. So just hang with me here. Quick update on the entire garden. We've topped off all the beds as of last night that are going to get topped off. We did not add anything to these two beds, so we're just going to leave them as they were, but everything else is topped off. And this is the potato bed, and I've done 3 out of 4 rows, but I saved one for you so I can kind of show you my process. And like I said, it's a little bit different than normal or that you will read about, but I think it's going to work out just fine, and I can kind of tell you why. So let's just get right into the potato part. So we got a bag of potatoes, we got seed potato, and we got them ready, and I'll show you what we did to get them ready. We basically just took a potato. So this is a whole potato, and you cut it where the eyes are. Now this one's so small I didn't cut it, but just to show you, like this one, for instance, we cut, and you want to make sure there's at least one eye on it. So this hood is in my way, and I just threw my tater. Ain't that something else? So we cut them, and I usually try to find 2 eyes on them, but then what I do is I lay them upside down and I let them form a callus on it for about a week. So this is how this will look. It'll look kind of funky. I don't know if you can see, the light's kind of bad today because it's cloudy, but it's like hardened over and it's white, so it's like a callus. And these in this bed are going to be Yukons, and then we're going to do another bed over there, but I haven't even started those because we're doing them at separate times for succession planning purpose, so we don't just get walloped. Really, for potatoes, it's all about just not having to harvest them all at once because it can be kind of a pain, but it's well worth it. If you've never grown a potato, I highly recommend it. So I took it, and then I made my trench, relayed my lines, and I dig my trench down. You can see here about 4 inches. So 4 inches in, I drop them. This one's actually a little bit more shallow than the other ones, which I'm not totally impressed with, but it's okay. And then I put in the fertilizer. So we put in the fertilizer, and I'm gonna lay these potatoes in 1 foot apart. And you can feel on this drip tape, there's an emitter here. So this is 1 foot. They're spaced 1 foot apart. So we're just gonna space them on down. So I just lay them right on top, right next to it, and just kind of get to it. We're supposed to have some warm weather this weekend, and I was looking at the 10-day forecast, and technically we would normally plant out around Valentine's Day, but it's just, and obviously I'm filming this a little bit beforehand, but it's just not going to be super cold for the next 10 days. So we figured that we would go ahead and get a head start on the taters. So hopefully it'll work fine. And the key with potatoes is getting them in the ground and getting them started before it gets hot. So they're a cool season-ish crop. They're a little bit more sensitive, but because they go so deep, it's not that bad. They can take a light frost, and then a little bit of cover will help. So if you remember in the video I am fully prepared to cover this bed, whatever it takes to keep it going. And based on our climate and our past weather and the foreseeable future, a low tunnel will be just enough to keep it going. It won't be any kind of stretch of the imagination or anything. I don't foresee us getting anything crazy cold. All right, now here's the important part. So I'm going to cover these taters, but I'm going to leave a bit of the trench. So what I'm doing is I'm coming through, I started back here, and this side of the dirt I moved in, this side of the dirt I moved in, and when I say, you see this trench on top here, I use half of it to move it in. Now as I dug, I spilled a little bit more soil in, which isn't a big deal, but for this one it's the same thing. So I'm just going to kind of come down and start to shave some of that dirt down. This is because it's the edge of the bed, it's really difficult. I actually don't think I'm going to do it that way. There we go. And so we just shave some of the soil down and just want to make sure that it gets nice and covered. Okay, so right off the bat, I did forget to say this. I used, so you know, in most of my garden, I'll use the 4-3-3 or a 10-10-10, something pretty balanced. I use the 4-3-3 in this, which is the garden tone. And then in a lot of the stuff I'll put in, I'll go back and I'll put in blood meal behind it for extra nitrogen. I'm not doing that for these potatoes. So I'm not gonna add any of that. And I may, if I have some bone meal, I'm gonna sprinkle that on top first because that'll help get it to grow bigger and better potatoes. So if I don't have any bone meal, which I might be out, I'm gonna get some more and sprinkle it in. But different plants require different fertilizers. I don't know if you can see very well, but I've left a very good indention here, and the middle of all these is where the potatoes go. They're in there. So you can see here, we've got a little bit of dirt on the side, and that's for continuous hilling. When you're growing potatoes in raised beds, it's difficult to hill. What I do, so they say you should continuously hill over and over. I do 2 hillings generally, and this year, I mean, if I can only do one, I can only do one. If the plants look like they're gonna topple over, I'll do 2. And if I don't have any other material, like I'll even go get like a bag of topsoil or something like that and just kind of mound it up around each one. And then also when I'm done hilling, I'll come around and then mound up as well. So technically I'm getting like maybe 3 to 4 hillings, but really what I'm talking about is when you have the trench and then you just add soil back in. That's a proper hilling. So based on the amount of soil I have enough here for maybe 1.5 hillings in each row. And that's okay, but I can do better than that. This is where I'm going to combine 2 methods this year. I did it last year, but I did it the opposite way, and it worked pretty good, but I want to do it the way that I think is going to work better. What I'm going to do is, as you can see, I'm not mulching my bed now. We're getting warm weather. We're not supposed to get real cold, so I don't really need to mulch it right now. But as it gets, if we get cooler or anything like that, or once they start to pop up on the ground, I'm going to go get some straw when I need to get a couple bales anyway to keep around here. And in the trench, I'm going to lay the straw in the trench, and that would be considered my first hilling. So if I can get it in there and just get a nice little thin layer, I mean, you're talking when your plants are probably this tall, come through and then hill it a little bit with the mulch. And then as they grow taller, I will come back and then I will hill with the soil. And then if I need to, and I probably will do this anyways because I don't want bare soil showing, I will come back and put another layer of mulch on top there. So I'm gonna build multiple layers. I came up with the idea of doing this, and then as I'm doing the video, I'm kind of formulating more of a plan. So that's more like a lasagna style. And then that will give me I think the medium to do it, because what'll happen is when I put the soil on top of the first layer, then that will actually break down, especially as we get warmer and it gets cooler. That'll start to break down. It'll be really wet. And a lot of people, you've seen people before say, hey, grow in straw bales and stuff like that. So this is no different than that. But instead of just growing in straw bales, I'm going to use a combination of both. And I'm pretty sure it's going to work because I've come into my garden before and put a thick layer of mulch down and then topped it off with soil and then came back, and it was like this, it was like it never even existed. And with using the drip system, because it's so efficient watering, it will keep it moist longer, and it will, well, the benefit of it is it will take and it'll break that straw down faster. The downside of it is I could potentially rot my taters, so I've got to be really careful and be mindful of the rains as we get spring rains and stuff like that. I'm personally ready to get all of this plastic off of the ground here. I'm going to move this low tunnel and be prepared, or I'm not going to move it yet, but I'm prepared at any time to move it over one bed back to where it was originally and then cover as needed. And this kind of brings me to the whole gardening method thing. You know, the one question I hate more than anything is what method do you use for gardening? Because I don't use a method, I use a combination of a bunch of methods. And I've learned a lot about different methods and stuff like that. And I take what I feel is the best part of each method and use it in my garden to the extent that I want to use it and I feel comfortable. And then I just kind of have my own style, my own method. It's the whatever works method, you know what I mean? You know, I minimal till, I'll sometimes lasagna garden, I'll use pieces and parts of square foot gardening. I mean, you know, growing potatoes in straw, like, you know, you just kind of mend it and make it to the best of your ability to what you feel like it's going to be best. You know, if you walk around my garden, you'll see that we have different methods employed. We have square foot here. We don't really have square foot here. We've got monocropping here. We've got just crops of the same family here. We've got companion planting. Well, we had companion planting, now we don't. Companion planting is a whole nother subject that we're gonna get into. Trust me, I've got my own thoughts about it. And if you've listened to the Backyard Gardens podcast, you know how I feel to an extent, but I do want to get into that a little bit more because I feel like there's a lot more to be said about it. But, you know, just instead of focusing on what your method that you're gonna use is, think about what's gonna work for you and look at the method and think to yourself, does this really work for what I want to do? Does this make sense? You know, I've done some of the hugelkultur method and I've done some other stuff like that, and just coming around to it, I find that this works better for me. So just use it to the best of your ability, and over the years you will develop your own method. And I think that's cool. I think it's cool to have your own method. There's no really right or wrong. There's good, better, and best. How's that? Because as long as you're growing, you're good, right? If you guys wanted me to do some videos about the different methods that I use and the pros and cons of them, let me know in the comments below. You know, if you'd like to see that, I'll make that kind of video. I just want to make sure that people are interested in that, because basically what I've tried, well, I've already told you what I've tried. Talking about everything from square foot gardening to container gardening to hugelkultur to no-till to lasagna to this, that, and the other. You know, those are the main ones that I've done. And then different methods of fertilizings and not fertilizings and amending and not amending and all that stuff. So if you guys want to see that kind of stuff, let me know in the comments below and I'll be happy to make some videos about that. Goodbye.